Hello EquesRAYans and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video I actually wanted to introduce you guys to Pepper's physiotherapist, and I also wanted to kind of start a discussion about the importance of maintenance on your horse, and not only that but on yourselves. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to start that topic of conversation. I actually went up to the yard thinking I had enough time to film an intro and an outro, but Helen is so on the ball that she was already at the yard as I had just got Peps in, so we started filming straight away. But yeah, following Pepper's little accident a few weeks ago, I kind of spoke about it in a couple of videos ago, but basically she just fell on her side, on her left hand side, and she scratched herself up a little bit, and I just wanted to check that she hadn't caused any damage to herself, that she hadn't sort of pulled or strained anything. I normally get the physio out for Peps every sort of three to 5 months, I'd say. It really depends. Sometimes a little niggle will come up and I'll notice whilst riding, and I'll think, oh, maybe she just needs a bit of a tweak, she might have pulled herself out in the field and stuff like that. So I do get her looked at fairly regularly. Same goes for the saddle. My saddle in particular I've had for 4 years now, and it's not the best saddle in the world. So I know that it can cause issues, and the flocking kind of goes kind of flat quite quickly. But I am hoping that next Friday I might have a new second-hand saddle. So yeah, fingers and toes crossed that it fits Peps. So today we're going to kind of talk through Helen's business, what she does, and we're just going to talk through Pepper's session. So Helen will always start with trussing your horse up so she can see any kind of irregular movements and stuff like that. So that's the first step, and after that she will kind of make an assessment and go from there. She then does her work on the horse and she finishes off with a write-up, and you actually get given a set of exercises to do afterwards. So it's not just you know, your horse gets looked at and that's it, because just like us really, we should be looked at quite regularly, and there's always going to be little niggles. Like, you think if you just have a day somewhere where you do a little bit more than normal, you feel it the next day. Horses are no different. They have a muscular system just like we do. Yeah, I just personally believe it's really, really, really important that your horse is looked at regularly. So let's go ahead and have a look at the session and see what Helen has to say about Peps, and I will see you afterwards. I'm just going to say I look like a ghost in these first few clips because we were trying to abide by social distancing rules, because obviously we are still in lockdown here in the UK. So we were trying to keep our distance as best as possible, so we couldn't get the ideal shots, unfortunately. So you're just going to have to ignore the fact that I'm stood in the light and Helen is not, because that's just the safest way we could do it at this point. Let's get into the video. Hi guys, so I'm here with Helen from Elite Animal Physiotherapy. She is Pepper's physio, and today we're just going to kind of talk to you about the importance of maintenance on your horse. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Helen Barker. I'm the owner of Elite Animal Physiotherapy. I am a registered equine physiotherapist, registered with RAMP, which is the Registered Animal Musculoskeletal Practitioners.
That's a mouthful.
It is, completely. And also a member of IAT, which is the International Association of Animal Therapists. I own Elite Animal Physiotherapy as well as All in Balance. My physiotherapy company does what it says, and I basically treat equines for physiotherapy. They are competition horses, they are your general happy hackers, and even your retired horses that may have a little bit of arthritis and need ticking over. My All in Balance company, I travel around the UK and we do demos including saddle fitters and instructors and farriers, and basically the whole professional team that keep your horse ticking over. So basically educate you owners on how we can keep our horses nice and level and straight and to the best of their abilities.
That was very well done. As you can see, we are abiding by social distancing standards as well while we do this. Helen's going to take a look at Pep's just because she had a bit of an incident a couple of weeks ago, and we just want to check that there's no further issues other than the superficial cuts that we found. So yeah, let's get into it and find out what Helen's going to do today. Okay, so the first step is to trot Peps up, so I'm going to do that now. I will film that for you, and then we'll sort of assess the situation and what needs working on.
Okay, so we're just going to ask Rachel to walk Peps away and then back, and then trot away and trot back. And what we're looking for at the moment is any asymmetry in the pelvis, whether there's one side is moving more than the other, one side higher or lower than the other. We're looking for her tracking up, and as you can see at the moment she's looking happier, there's going to be a little bit more on 3 tracks coming towards us to the right. Looking a little bit heavier in that right pull through that knee. Okay, when you're happy, Rachel, you can trot her away and trot her back. That'd be great, thank you. I'll do my best. So same again. And we're looking, if you see the right hind, it's just looking to come across in front of her white sock. Having a better look on the way back, probably. So she's just plotting a little bit behind. You can just see she's coming a little bit harder through that right shoulder. Okay, so we take her in, I'll have a look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I always work through from the wither all the way through the back first to the quarters, feeling for any tension through the spine and the longissimus. We know with Peps as well that she does tend to get a little bit lazy and gets on her forehand, so she can get a little bit tight through her lumbus here. A quick check that we can do is a quick reflex reaction, which is a little bit like if you're dehydrated and your skin doesn't go back that quickly because you've not got the blood flow, the water in there. It's the same with the muscle. So if you ask the muscle to contract and relax, if the blood flow isn't quite through that muscle, it takes a little bit longer to actually relax. So this left hand side, I'm quite happy with. So down, it's a little bit slower than I like, but not too bad. And I'm going to do the same on the other side to get a comparison. And you usually find that one side is tighter than the other. So the same this side. Going to feel down the trapeze, you see the side of the wither. Good girl. Which is where if you've got a saddle that's too tight or sitting too low and is too wide, this is where you'd feel the pressure there. Getting working through her back. Pep's got a very glossy coat.
Thanks to exclusive Haas brushes, I'll just plug that in there. Which I have a discount code for now, guys. Link in the bio.
Okay, so this side is actually an awful lot softer and is releasing an awful lot quicker. So that's down and releases instantly. Okay, so we can gauge from that she's a little bit tighter on that left hand side. Another check that we can do is ask her just to flex. So I'm going to ask her to flex to the left from this side. And we can see there that again she's very slow on that left hand side to release. She's just released there. So we're going to do the same and ask her to flex to the right. Now what we're gauging from this is that left hand side through that longissimus is a little bit tighter and contracted compared to the right. So I would gauge from this that Peps is probably better at the moment on the left rein because she's got that flexion there naturally. I'm going to ask her to flex to the right, and she's a lot softer, but there's no flexion there, okay? Because she's struggling then to expand through the longissimus on this near side. So what I'm going to do before I do any other work on her is I'm just going to pop some ultrasound, some therapeutic ultrasound through here first, so that then that'll enable me to look at the back end without any tension through here. Okay, so I'm just going to pop some ultrasound gel through here first, just to help the ultrasound conduct through. Good girl. Okay, so the ultrasound obviously can only be used by a trained therapist, because there are a lot of issues that can happen if you use the ultrasound without any training. So things like if you are using this near to bone and there's a fracture, then that can actually expand and open up that fracture even more. And the same if you've got a pregnant mare, you can't use this on a pregnant mare because it actually breaks down the fibres and you can abort the baby. Okay, so we're just literally keeping this moving so that we don't end up with any air bubbles within those muscles. And we're starting from the front to the back, the way the coat would lie. Good girl. And this can go in different depths. Obviously we have the superficial and we have deep muscles. So depending on what we're working on, we may go a bit deeper. So here, we're not going that deep. But if we're using this on, say, the hamstrings or the gluteals, we may go a little bit deeper depending on the depth of the muscle.
Oh, that was a nice sigh there. Are you enjoying yourself?
Yes.
Hi, Nick.
Hey. Nick's waiting her turn for this, that's what it is.
Yeah, do me next.
Yeah, I want a bit of ultrasound.
To be honest, I think I need it. I'm stiff as a board at the moment.
See, that is it. And as soon as you get back riding again, if you aren't looked at, then you're going to make her stiff.
Well, this is something I was going to discuss with you actually, is I know we're here to talk about the importance of getting your horse seen to.
Yep.
But it's also vital that you get yourself looked at, and I am terrible for that. I will put my hands up that I don't get myself looked at as much as I should.
You really do need to, because little things like if you look at the flocking on your saddle and you've got flocking that's higher on one side than the other, that could actually be you that's sitting one way and making it go like that, and obviously that then has an effect on her. So where she's tied down this left hand side, it could be that the rider is sitting to the left and blocking them through their left hip. Also the same with, we were explaining earlier that she can get a little bit tight through her lumbers here, which actually today she's fine. But most riders will suffer from lower back pain, and that is usually because the horse gets blocked through their lumbers here, and we end up as riders taking that concussion through our own backs. As well as female riders, especially more due to saddle fit and things like that, we end up with our hips and our knees and aching more than the male riders, which obviously then also has a knock-on effect. That's a whole other subject, but yeah, modern saddles aren't for women pretty much, are they not? They're not at all, not at all. Unfortunately, the saddle industry kind of still thinks that women go out and ride side saddle. And that hasn't been going on for years. But yes, if you look into it, most saddles are designed for the male pelvis, not the female pelvis. That's crazy. As women, we know we tip forward and we end up with that lower back pain. Yep. And then we try and bring our leg further forward because our leg shoots back because we're tipping forward, and we have no choice in theory. Okay, so I'm now just rechecking that after we've used the ultrasound. So again, I'm going to use the reflex reaction, so down and up. So if you can see, that's a little bit quicker than it was when we did it initially. Good girl. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from her back end and work forward. Which is what you should do when you're riding too. It is indeed, we engage that back end. And the problem is, because the back end affects the front, so I might have an asymmetric pelvis. That's very asymmetric at the moment because I'm just kind of leaning. She's clearly enjoying this very much. So if we have an asymmetric pelvis that we then correct, we may then end up with an asymmetric pole, but not necessarily the way around. I could check the pole now, could be fine, but then I alter the pelvis and the pole goes out. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do at the moment is I'm going to ask her to stand square. And a really quick way of doing this, she's probably going to prove me wrong now, aren't I? Typical mare. Yes. Is grab hold of the tail, pick up the foot, make sure the toes are in line, and give the tail a little pull so she stands square. Okay, and what I am going to look for now is, if you look at my fingers from the front, Rach, is I'm going to place my fingers on point of pelvis. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, I think this so. This right hand side is lower than this left hand side. That's really clear actually on the camera, yeah. Brilliant. So what she's basically doing is she's blocking through this left hand side, which is why when we actually trotted up, you could see the swing from the right coming underneath. We did talk about that. Yeah. So because she's basically on her tiptoes on this left hand side. So we're going to realign that. Some horses might need a little bit of muscle stimulation through here before we do that. we know she's fine. So we shall realign that. We're just going to check the sacroiliac joint on either side as well. So you can see here, this right hand side, we've got movement. This left hand side, there's nothing. So again, she's on tiptoes, blocking through this side of her pelvis.
Do you think that could potentially be because of the injury? Because
It
it's
could
on the
well
left-hand
be,
side?
yeah. What we're going to do is we'll mobilise the stifle and we'll have a look at the stifle as well.
Brilliant.
But we think probably where she's gone down and she's caught through there is she's pushed up through this left hind.
Yeah.
And then that then lifts up. A bit like if you fall downstairs and you jerk through one of your legs.
Yeah.
And you can feel it up through there.
Brilliant. Just you literally disappearing behind her bum there.
Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to rock this side down. You will get some therapists that will come and take hold of the leg and pull that right over. And to rebalance it and realign it. We know that she's already tight through here, so it'd be a little bit unfair to do that. So what I do, and I'm only 4'10" as well, so I do work out every day and I do my weights, but unfortunately Pepsi's a big girl. So I will rock it from this side and then downwards, and then from the other side I will push up, and then we will check again where that will sit. Good girl. We know that she's a very good girl. You do get some horses that obviously will try and cow kick across to do this, because you'll mobilise it, especially if there's a little bit of arthritic changes gone through the sacroiliac joint here. Then we end up with horses that are in pain as you are then trying to rotate it, and obviously if we got to a point like that, we'd refer that back to the vet for further investigation. Good girl. You like this, don't you?
Yeah. It probably feels nice after everything.
Exactly. So what's her turnout been like since she had the accident?
She's been going out every day since, and most of the day to keep it mobile.
Brilliant, perfect. And what sort of exercise routine was she in up until then?
Pretty much in full rhythm work, so at least 4 to 5 days a week. A lot of hacking as well, so.
Perfect, yeah, that is the best ways. A lot of people also end up, especially with like me who likes my dressage,
yeah,
we tend to sit in school. The best way is actually doing cross training with your horse.
Yeah.
You have to remember that obviously the muscles fibres have to tear and then repair themselves to build muscle.
Yeah.
So you have to give them that chance to repair. Rock it up from this side. Good, yeah. Which isn't going to be comfortable. The horse at any point can move away. I don't mind them moving. I'd rather them feel like they can move away from the pain and feel trapped.
Yeah.
Good girl. Good girl. Now obviously the issue that she's got at the moment is on that stifle. That's where her injury site is. So we've got to be aware that we are now putting the weight over to that left hind. Good girl. Yeah, but Rachel is very good. I mean, Peps does do a lot of cross train, so she'll do some jumping, she'll do a bit of dressage. I've got amazing hacking here as well, so we'll do a little bit of everything to make sure that no individual muscle is put under strain constantly. Yeah, I know.
What are you doing back there?
I got your bottom. But now we've got some licking and chewing. Good girl. There we go. Good girl. Now we've sunk into okay.
So for the viewers, is that a sign of relaxation?
It can be a sign of relaxation, but it can also be a sign of anxiety, and it's a kind of submission. So you'll see foals doing it with the mares, and they're basically submitting. But it is also a sign of relaxation, especially if there's a yawn at the end of it and things as well. But it is a very fine line between whether it's anxiety or whether it is relaxation. We know with her. She's not worried.
You're not an anxious horse, are you, love?
So now we have realigned the pelvis. We are now going to double check it. So this is things that you can do as an owner anyway.
So this is the thing I like about Helen as well, is she gives you a sheet, which I'll show you afterwards, with exercises to do so that you can kind of keep up with the activities that you're doing here.
Can read my writing.
Yeah. I normally manage.
I do also have email diagrams that I can send out as well, so people don't quite remember.
That's brilliant.
Okay, so same places again, and we can see that is far more level than it was.
Yeah.
I can feel that this left hand side is a little bit tighter still, but that is obviously far more symmetrical than it was.
Yeah.
So what we're going to ask her to do now is actually lift through the sacroiliac joint and actually move through the lumbars as well.
Which you don't like doing, so I'm going to hold on to you.
Most horses will walk forward when you do this. Good girl. Some horses are far more reactive than other horses. There we go. Good girl. Good girl.
She's like, I do not like that.
And that one is a little bit like when you've got a really sore lower back and you bend down, touch your toes, and you know it's going to really pull, but it's going to feel so good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her tail a quick pull, and we're going to gauge how much strength and stability she's got through her stifles. So we're going to do this one first because we know, fingers crossed, that this is a good stifle. I'm asking her to engage. We can see she's not quite holding herself there, so there's a little bit of a weakness through there, but we also know that, what did you say now, a week and a half did you say earlier, Rachel, that she's been out and she's not been doing any work. So she has been head down, eating and grazing, so she's not been sitting back like we would do asking her in the school and engaging here.
It's amazing how quickly they lose fitness and everything,
completely.
Especially when they are good doers.
6 weeks it takes to lose the muscle.
That's crazy.
6 weeks to lose it, 6 months to build it up. Yeah. So we know it doesn't matter whether she's stood square or not, she will mobilise herself and figure out where she needs to be. I'm going to do the same on this side. Good girl. So I can feel her there clicking through that stifle, and you can probably see that actually. Good girl.
What, across?
And right down through from her pelvis to her stifle, and then also through her coccygeal vertebrae that run down her tail to her dock. She's holding through those. So I am just going to ask her just to stand a little bit squarer, just so she was on the rubber matting as well. We just want to make sure she's a little bit more balanced. And I'm going to ask the same again. Good girl. Yeah, so she's definitely finding it harder to engage on this left hand side
Yeah.
than she was the right. Good girl. Also we've got the injury site here.
Good girl.
Good, lads. Just going to feel down now from the top of her hamstrings down to her hocks on both sides. Just asking them to engage. Oh,
Good girl.
So obviously on Rachel's sheet that she gets at the end as well, she will be given a lot of exercises, because this is not a one-off treatment and your horse is fixed. Okay, so she's tighter in her distal hamstrings or her lower hamstrings, and then inserting into her hock. She's just a little bit tighter through there, and I think that's probably where she's been on her tiptoes on that left hand side. Her joints on this right hand side have been compressed, so she's not had that flexibility through her hamstrings. So again, I'm just going to put a little bit now of red light phototherapy through there to get some heat and get some give through those hamstrings, and then we will stretch them out rather than stretch them out and cause too much tension. So literally just putting the red light phototherapy along the hamstrings for about 20 seconds every couple of inches, and moving it down just to get some blood flow through her hamstrings before we then mobilise it and stretch them.
So is this infrared?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have some infrared boots. Do you think that would be a good idea to put on before doing stretches perhaps?
Yes, the infrared boots are brilliant because they increase the circulation, so therefore you're going to get more give through your tendons and ligaments. The magnetic therapy is far better. There's far more of a therapeutic kind of reason for using magnetic boots. However, the magnetic therapy you can only leave on for really a maximum of 4 hours, because then you can overheat the tendons and ligaments. The infrared technology you can leave on overnight, which is far easier. As horse owners, we know we have no time.
Especially horse owners that have just got a baby as well.
Yeah, we're doing this between rushing home, I'm guessing, to
Yep.
the baby. Good girl. There we go. So the next one I'm going to do is we're going to lift up her toe. Come on, pop it. Just in your own time. There we
No
go.
thanks.
And all I'm going to do is going to take hold of the toe, and you can have a horse trying to cow kick and all sorts. The second you've got hold of the toe, they tend to submit because they realise you're not blocking them. They can get away at any point. And all I'm going to do first of all is bring it down until she pushes down through that heel. And I'm just gauging the range of movement through her fetlock. I'm going to bring it back up and close that hock We know she can close her hock because she was dropped on this side, so the joint's been compressed anyway. I'm going to pull it forward, just to the point that she resists. I'm going to take hold of the fetlock at the back and then bring it further forward, so we're stretching that hamstring out. Good girl. Good girl. Okay. And then the last one we're going to do is we're just going to check the range of movement laterally through that stifle. So I'm going to hold it with her. I need 2 hands because again I'm 4'10". And lift it up laterally. Good girl. Good girl. And if you notice, I don't ever stop talking anyway. But I've always, unless I'm picking up my machines or I'm going to get my paperwork and fill paperwork in, I've always usually got a hand on the horse or I'm talking, so I know where I am all the time. And I'm going to do this one. So again, we're always checking and just see, this one's actually far better. Good girl. And bring that forward. So there she went to pull back through the stifle. So she's obviously a little bit of discomfort through there, but nothing major. Okay. Bring it back and then out.
You wouldn't think you could make them do all these things, would you?
I know. Again, now I'm going to go along the rib shelf at the top. So as before, we were higher up through the longissimus. We're now checking the rib shelf. So sometimes, if you've got a saddle that sits too wide or it rocks, you can find it's going to put the pressure here on the top of the rib cage. You know, this way, darling. And then I'm going to work from the back, from her rib, all the way between each rib to the front, and just checking for any reaction on the abdomen at the same time. So obviously if you've got a horse that's a little bit ulcery, you probably get a reaction. The hind gut obviously sits on the right hand side, so I'm gauging if there's a difference in reaction on the right to the left. You've never really presented like you'd have horses. You're way too relaxed.
It's hard though, isn't it, when you can't work them?
It is very hard, very hard.
But I would say with how that's healing up, hopefully now we could probably at least start from the ground.
The way that I'm thinking at the moment is what I'd like you to do really is to do some long reining.
Yeah.
Or at least lunging with 2 lines.
Yeah.
So that you then have, when you're long lining, you can then look at her from behind and see if she's engaging through that stifle. The way she's presented at the moment, there is no reason that she can't do. She just needs a little bit more strength through it. You can tell, especially when you trot her up, that she's not quite been using it to the extent of the right. Good girl. But yeah, so when you're long lining, obviously you are stood behind, you can see exactly what we were looking at when we were trotting up to see whether one side is moving more than the other, and you can use your line then just to ask them to straighten up. And obviously when you're lunging with 2 lines, you have the outside line to get behind them, so a bit like a pursuer. So they are then working. Oh, very slippery on this side now. You can then have the outside line going behind the hocks to not only give them a bit of support on the outside, but to also get them to engage their back end and lift through these lumbers.
That's horses, isn't it? You're always going to have setbacks.
Constantly. You can have the fittest horse that you want, but then all it takes is for them to go out on the field and catch themselves on a divot, and they're out of work for 6 weeks and you've got to start again.
Well, like you were saying about like the maintenance with the sheet that you give us, you could have this work done and they could go out in the field the next day and pull themselves again.
Exactly. And the problem you've got as well is most horses that I go to for the first time may not have had a treatment for a year.
Or ever.
Well, exactly. more likely. But the problem you then have is you are trying to A, strip muscle and put a plan together to strip the muscle, and then B, you're trying to realign the skeleton, and then C, rebuild the muscle where the skeleton needs to be. And that is a long process. It's not a quick overnight fix. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to open up her rib cage and we're going to engage through her diaphragm. So a lot of horses that have got, say, wind issues and things like that, their diaphragm obviously becomes tight because they're not getting that lung capacity. So what we're going to do is just one hand just off centre of the girth, near the sternum, another one a little bit further back, and we're going to lift up. And the aim is to lift up through here. Good girl.
Good girlie.
I know, you don't like that. Remember, this is their tighter side.
Yeah.
Isn't it, Poppet?
Good girl.
So lifting up through there. And you've got to remember this as well. You can have a horse that looks like it's got amazing top line, and it's not. It's a covering of fat. But when we say about working the top line, if you think about trying to engage your back on its own, it's incredibly hard. If you bring your belly button to your spine, it's really simple, and your back or spattle engages. So the same with this, you're basically doing sit-ups for your horse. So you're getting her to engage her abdomen through
Good
here,
girl.
and at the same time, that is lifting and stretching through her top line. Oh, so you're having kissing now. Is your mummy being horrible to you? No, you stick with me, darling, you're all right.
It's funny actually, because I'd noticed that she'd been a bit girthy recently.
Ah.
So that makes sense actually with you doing that.
Yeah.
And these are things as horse owners that you should be looking out for as well, because it may mean that they need something like this doing.
Definitely.
And that's, for me, she's my first horse, so it's just come from experience really, and learning as I go. And just...
the problem is there's so many things on the market now that our horse owners use, especially gadget wise and schooling wise, and like you say, just ourselves, and the amount of different saddles that are on the market and things like that as well. Everything plays a part. Whereas before it'd be a case you put a snaffle in and you chuck any old GP on. And the horse would actually usually be okay. But now we have, everyone goes out and spends thousands on new gadgets, and the horses tend to break a little bit quicker.
So what's this you're doing now?
So this is now just checking her scapula. So we're making sure that her cervical vertebrae and her brachio, so where you end up with the horses upside down, and you've got the development through the brachio here. We are making sure she's nice and soft, and we can actually get that hand right behind that scapula.
Which we can.
No problem. Yeah, she's lovely and soft through there. So she's not bracing at all, and that's when you end up, so horses that are like Volker and things like that, that end up with their cervical vertebrae really tight, and you end up with some arthritis through here, you wouldn't be able to get through that because they'd be bracing and blocking you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring her shoulder out and bring her scapula out. So I'm going to push her knee in. Yeah, so basically she's starting off here, and we're looking up here and we're looking for that scapula to rotate away from that latissimus.
That's better.
Good girl. And then we are going to bring that forward. We're going to take hold of the toe.
Oh.
I'm just going to make sure she does keep the opposite hind on the floor, because you'll feel like you're stretching this through, but in actual fact they'll be tilting the opposite hind. Good girl. Perfect. You can relax it now, Dad. I'm not taking the whole weight the whole time. Hello. Nice speaking. Good girl. So this is the one that's going to be interesting, because actually the injury's on that left side ball.
Yeah.
So she's a little bit tighter through that. So I'm doing it this way first, just to gauge what her reaction is through that stifle before I ask her to actually come out laterally through that shoulder.
Good girl.
And sometimes you do this and you hear a big click as you're doing the knee, and that's because you've just got two tiny little rows of bones in the knee. They're not like ours with a joint and the cap over the top. So they end up with so much movement through there, and also they get little airlocks, because they're taking the concussion most of the time. They remember that the horse naturally is on the forehand. Good girl.
And Cobb's even more so.
Definitely. So now I'm going to run through here. See, she's dropping her head. I'm not even asking for that. That's her just freeing up that cervical vertebrae.
Good girl.
From behind her shoulder. You're going to sleep now. Okay, then I'm going to check laterally. Good girl. I'm going to work my way through her. She's just coming a little bit back at me rather than listening and actually flexing, they're sending. So I'm just going to ask her right the way through from her pole. That's better, to flex down. Some horses, as soon as you put pressure on the cervical vertebrae, want to come back.
Yeah.
And actually what we want her to do is stretch down. So I'm going to start on the top. Good girl. And the amount of people actually think that the vertebrae run through here, all the way along the back, and it is at the top, and it doesn't. It actually comes down behind the shoulder and back up through the middle. Good girl. Good girl. And now we're going to see how acute. So a lot of people do carrot stretches, which is great.
Easy peasy.
Textbook course, aren't you? So what I'm asking her to do is, rather than actually come,
good girl.
Rather than her come all the way back to her stifle, which is what a lot of people do, I know because I've done the belly lifts and I've flexed her laterally that she's fine through here.
Yeah.
So when we ask her to come back here, we're asking her to flex through her barrel as well. So all I wanted to check then is that actually through her cervical vertebrae she can go back. So then the pole. So the pole, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, we've got 3 fingers on this side between that atlas and her jaw there.
Yeah.
And that side I've got 2.5 foot of push. So what she's basically done in this gap here is that first vertebrae has come down to the right here. So we need to mobilise that. And what you'll find is if that pole then rotates to that extent, is every time you've got any pole pressure, so whether that's your head collar, whether that's your bridle, because the pole has done this, the left hand side is higher.
Yeah.
So any pole pressure you've got is automatically putting more pressure on the left than the right. And you have got the occiput muscle that here is sitting on the top, so you can get tension through there. But you, my darling, are absolutely fine.
She's like, no.
Yeah. Good girl. So I'm literally just getting my thumb under that atlas. And a lot of horses will fight the tension to begin with, and all of a sudden once you've got your thumb under there, they go, oh. Good girl. Good girl. We've got to the relaxing bit. And again, I'm not doing a 1, 2, 3, let's pop it over and make a big crack. I'm gently rocking it.
That bottom lip's going.
You're going to start drooling with the moment, aren't you? So the next thing I'm going to check is the hyoid under here, which can sit left or right, basically where your tongue attaches to. So hers is a little bit over to the right.
Interesting.
So what I'm going to do is just put my finger in her mouth on this right hand side and ask her to open and close her mouth, and she'll start to mobilise the tongue. And if you look, that tongue is automatically coming to the left. So if you stick your tongue to the left, the back of your tongue is to the right, which is exactly what's happening.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand on this side and I'm just literally tickling her tongue and asking her to bring her tongue this way. There we go. And that then, by bringing it to the right, will put the back of the tongue and that hyoid over to the left. And it's amazing the amount of horses that if you actually put your fist in between their jaw underneath here, you suddenly realise as to how, when you're doing so many horses every day, that some of them you can get big 17-2 with a tiny little gap, which obviously then if you go and put a snaffle in that's only got a single joint, there's no room for that to go at all. There we go. Good girl. We're going to sleep now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check the TMJ. So obviously horses cross their jaw, so they do from one side to the other when she's finished walking.
And that's a good sign.
Good girl. And what I'm listening for here is the evenness in the sound. So that should sound the same as that, which it does. Some horses you'll get no sound on one side, and that's where they're locking through the TMJ joint on this side. But luckily, Pets, like Rachel said, is pretty even. You have a little yawn. And then what I always tend to do is to finish, a bit like when you've been for your own little massage and they ring the bell at the end, is just take hold of the tail and pull the tail back. So she knows I'm finished, she's gone straight for the feed. And then pull the tail back so she knows that it's all finished.
All done.
Good girl. That was funny that I literally
I know.
pulled the tail and she went, oh, I know.
Yeah, thank you.
Good girl. Right, so I'm going to write all this up for you now.
Brilliant. And this doubles as a chair for Helen as well.
So the stretches for Rachel are, again, starting at the back, working our way forward, are the pelvic tilts to make sure that this pelvis stays in alignment. So we're going to push in either side of the tail until she lifts right up through those lumbars.
And that was much easier for her now that she's freed up.
Far easier, didn't have the nails that time. Then we have the tail pulls. So if you think we want to get some stability around the stifle, so to do that we need to engage her muscle. So all we're doing is going to pull until she engages. And I can feel her twisting on that left stifle now. Okay, so Going to do 30 of those either side. 3 of the pelvic tilts. I have written all this down.
Yeah, that's fine.
Don't you worry. Now we all look like you get an essay at the end of it all. Then we're going to take hold of the toe, lift it up, bring it forward to the point that she resists, and then one hand behind her fetlock, and I'm going to bring it forward so she stretches out through that hamstring. Good girl. Then we have the front leg stretches. Good best. So we're going to pick that toe up, so making sure she keeps the opposite hind on the floor. Sorry, I'm standing in your hay, aren't I? You see she's looking through her knee there. So I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on her knee. I'm going to ask her to drop through that heel. And just let her relax, and then she will, there we go, she'll stretch that out. But all the time then she kept that heel on the floor, so I'm not worried about that left hind really, because that would have been a good kind of gauge as to how tight she was, and she was absolutely fine. So that's 10 of those either side. Then we have the pole stretch. This is a nice one. Let's disappear on this side of you. And you're going to put your chin on my shoulder. I'm going to put my hands behind her ears and listen to you munching in my ear.
A bit of horse ASMR.
Yeah. And literally just putting my hands there and just taking the weight of the head on my shoulder. You'll
Good
find
girl.
obviously when you're doing that every day, she'll be far more relaxed.
Yeah.
Because she's not been prodded and poked for the last hour. And obviously she knows you better than she knows me, so she'll tend to drop and open up through that pole and relax through that pole. And then the next one is just before you tack up, so this doesn't have to be every day. It's just before you tack up, just pop your hand in on this right hand side and just tickle her tongue. So no pressure, because also that tongue does attach to that hyoid. So just tickling it until she brings that tongue out to the right. When you've not got a mouthful of hay. There we go. And just doing that for 4 or 5 seconds, and then release, and then you can put the bridle on.
Brilliant.
So you know that hyoid straight before you take her up.
Perfect.
That is all of them, but like I say, we have written them all down on your sheet for you.
Amazing.
So I've got right hand side,
Peps is taking
side.
notes.
That's the issues that I found. That's what I've done to correct those issues, and then they're the stretches that we've just been.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So what areas do you cover then?
I cover Essex and Suffolk. I do have clients that I go to in central London. If I'm travelling to London, then I tend to try and do 4 or 5 horses on one yard. You do get discount as well if there's more than one horse on the same yard as well. But yeah, my main areas are Essex and Suffolk. If you have a look on the RAMP register, then I'm on there, and all my details, contact details, and things on there as well.
Brilliant.
Or I'm on my Facebook, which is Elite Animal Physiotherapy.
Amazing. Thank you very much for demonstrating today.
No problem. You always like seeing pets.
Of course. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video, something a little bit different, a little bit more kind of educational, but I thought it would be helpful for you guys if maybe some of you perhaps just didn't know that you should get your horses looked at, and you may not have known about the structure of sort of how it all goes, so hopefully it's helped seeing Helen work on Peps and talking through previous issues, current issues. I love talking to Helen. As you can probably tell, we could talk to each other about this kind of thing all day, because horse and rider biomechanics is something that really fascinates me. And don't forget to follow Helen on all of her social medias. I will link them down below. So that is Elite Animal Physiotherapy, and her name is Helen Barker. But yeah, I just thought while I had a lovely professional visiting, I thought I would kind of talk to them about the importance of having your horse looked at. And not only that, but as you saw in the video, I put my hands up. I am terrible for getting myself looked at, and I know that I should, because as Helen was explaining, the way you carry yourself has a massive role to play in how your horse can physically carry themselves and you. So it's really, really vital that you get yourselves looked at as well. And that is something that I plan to work on when I get back into things. I've actually been talking to my physio, because I do go, you know, occasionally. I usually leave it until I'm like literally crippled before I do see someone, but I do have a physio. and I've been talking to her about doing a similar video but talking from the rider's perspective. She has had horses in the past, so she kind of knows how the rider affects the horse kind of thing. So that's really useful actually, rather than just using a physio that isn't horsey at all. So yes, it's very important for not only your own health but for your horse's health that you get yourself looked at. So watch this space. There will be another video coming up once lockdown is lifted. Unfortunately, my physio is not able to work still, and like everywhere else, it's really taken a toll on businesses like that. So if you are feeling like, you know, a little bit stiff and a little bit clunky, now would be a great time. Like once lockdown's lifted, it would be a great time for you to see a physio. Not only will you be getting yourself rejuvenated, but you will also be helping out a business. So yes, plenty of reasons there for you to get yourself looked at. If you're new here, don't forget you can hit that subscribe button down below, ring the notification bell so that you won't miss out on future uploads. And please do leave a comment if you guys have enjoyed this video, because I love reading your comments. And do feel free to leave any suggestions of videos that you might like to see from me as well. Oh, it's thundering outside. Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening me, Galileo. So yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until the next time, I'll see you later. Bye!